It's officially game week, and in honor of Clemson's matchup with Georgia this week, we put the teams into AI software to predict the games and the stats to see who AI thinks will going to win. The results: AI is a fan and has some faith in the Clemson Tigers.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. I'm your host, John Bivens. You can find us over on Twitter at I am John Bivens. We are a credentialed media member with the Clemson Tigers in baseball, basketball, and football. Thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. After you listen to this podcast, go make sure to check out one of the other 200 podcasts with Locked On Podcast. That is your team every day. Here on Locked On Clemson, we are all sports, all passion, all the time, where we're bringing you everything you need to know regarding Clemson sports. Today is Monday, August 26th. We've got a great episode for you. We're going to talk about the AI prediction of who wins the game, talk about which team has the better secondary, and then wrap up the episode talking about how the ACC is already completely upside down. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate GM. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and 100% playable offline. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today. Guys, this is not a drill. This is not a false alarm. It is officially game week. It is officially Clemson game week, and we cannot wait. We are pumped. We are 6 days away, 6 days away from an amazing game. We can't wait to see how Clemson looks against Georgia in our season opener. But in the middle of all that, we put Clemson and Georgia into an AI software for the AI to predict the game to see what was going to happen. And the AI has some faith in your Clemson Tigers. We put them in, and we made sure we started a brand new section. We started a brand new system where we did not say we're a Clemson fan. We didn't tell it who to win. We didn't do anything like that. We simply just said, hey, here is a link to the we uploaded Clemson's team. We uploaded Georgia's team. And then we told it to go through and make predictions. We told it to go through and kind of identify some key things, talk about each quarter breakdown, talk about some key stats and who was going to win this game. And here's what it said. It walked through and it has a prediction for Clemson versus Georgia. It identified some key players to begin with, identified Cade Klubnik, Phil Maffa, and Barrett Carter for Clemson. And then identified Carson Beck, Trevor Etienne, and Michael Williams. I think it's Michael, could be Mikhail, but defensive lineman for Georgia. And then it started getting into the game flow. Here's what it said. The first quarter, Clemson started out strong on their first possession with Cade firing to Tyler Brown for an early touchdown. Georgia responded with the very next drive with a methodical drive, ending with a touchdown run by Trevor Etienne. I know there's a chance he's suspended, but the AI software doesn't know that. But then it said the teams traded field goals the next 2 drives each. So it started out both teams scoring 10 points right off the bat. And then nobody scored for the rest of the half. The rest of the half was a couple 3-and-outs, a couple first downs, then punts. Didn't have any turnovers, but it did have a 10-10 tie going into halftime. As a Clemson fan, I think you've got to be happy with that because in order for us to win, our defense has got to play great, which I know that, but we need Cade not to turn over the ball, and we need some success on offense. So 10-10 tie at halftime, I wouldn't be too upset with that as a Clemson fan. Second half, it says Georgia defense begins to assert itself, forcing Cade Klubnik into hurried throws, causing an interception early on in the third quarter. ETN scores again on the ground, but Clemson answers with a long touchdown drive capped off by a field goal or by a Maffa run. And then late in the fourth quarter, nothing else exciting happens. Late in the fourth quarter, Klubnik orchestrates a game-winning drive, setting up a field goal as time expires. The AI software is predicting Clemson to win 20-17. I promise you on everything I did not tell it to say who won. I did not give any kind of, hey, make Clemson win. I didn't do any kind of that. I kept it as unbiased and as real as possible. And in this simulation, it selected Clemson as the winner, knowing the odds, I made sure that I inserted the odds, inserted the predictions, inserted all that kind of stuff. With its research, looking up everywhere online, all the teams, everything it has to its resources available, the AI software selected Clemson to upset the Georgia Tigers. That's exciting. Some of the final score, it's tapped it off with Clemson manages to edge out Georgia in a close contest. Klubnik's composure in the final minutes and Clemson's defense holding strong are key to this victory. And so we asked it for some player stats. It said Cade Klubnik went 21 for 32, 240 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, ran for 18 yards. Phil Maffa, 22 carries, 90 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 receptions, 22 yards. Tyler Brown, 6 receptions with 85 yards and a touchdown. Barrett Carter went off apparently. 10 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss and a sack. And then Khalil Barnes, a safety for Tigers, had 2 pass deflections, 8 tackles, broke up a deep pass intended for a Georgia receiver late in the fourth quarter. And Georgia stats had Carson Beck going 20 for 35, 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 12 yards running. Had Trevor Etienne, 19 carries, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions, 15 yards. Ladd McConkey has them for the Bulldogs, their wide receiver, coming out. I'm sorry, that was last year's team. He's not with them. Has Dominic Lovett. Coming out. And playing a good game, has them coming out and getting a lot of yards, getting a lot of scores there, having him be a game with almost 100 receiving yards on the day as well. So overall, has a pretty big day. Has Michael Williams 6 tackles, 2 sacks, and then has one of their defensive backs coming through and having an amazing day as well. It has Malik Starks coming through with 9 tackles, having their interception in the second quarter that led to Georgia's field goal. Overall scoring summary, like we talked about, Clemson and Georgia both scoring 10 points in the first quarter each, nothing in the second quarter. Third quarter, Georgia takes off the lead right at the beginning with a 10-yard run. Clemson follows that, and then in the fourth quarter, as time expired, Clemson kicking the game-winning field goal. If this happens, that's exciting. But I got to be honest. If you've listened to this point, I've got to be honest with you. I have told the truth on everything I've said except for one key detail. I told you that I inserted all the stats and asked them to predict the game, and that they predicted Clemson. In all honesty and the truth of transparency, I did not say how many times it took me to do the simulation for Clemson to win. And to be very honest with you, it took me 7 different attempts for me to insert this game in and for Clemson to win this game. 7 different attempts. So does AI have faith in Clemson? Yeah, to win one game in 7 attempts against Georgia. One of the games had Georgia winning by 20 or by 13 points. One of them by 7, another one of them by 4, another by 3, and another by 4. And it was a lot of close games, a couple not so close games. So all the stats, all the prediction we just walked through, AI does predict that could happen if we play the Bulldogs 7 times. The first 6 it has Georgia winning. So the faith, I might have fibbed a little. The faith of the AI is not in the Tigers. AI is predicting Georgia to win, but that's not going to happen. Georgia's upset, or Clemson's going to upset. We're excited to see that. Either way, it is game week. Get excited. We like doing fun stuff like this just to keep a little bit of excitement building and growing. But let's leave AI alone and let's talk more about the actual players. Last week, we went through the offensive position groups and talked about which team has the upper hand at each offensive position group. This week, let's switch it up. Let's dive into defense and see which team has the best defensive group at each positional group. So we're going to talk about that and more. Let's start off with the secondary. Hey, Locked On Clemson fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do, Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine being the head coach of Clemson? From recruiting players, hiring coaching staff, to overseeing training camps and paneling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail for this program. It's all in your hands. Are you going to be able to handle the pressure? And here's why I really love the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays, and your strategy determines success on and off the field. Ultimate College Football is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go, when and where you want. And of course, we have a special offer for you here. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it helps you get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, visit ultimate-cfb.com and look it up in the App Store. Begin your coaching legacy today. College football is back, and it is not too late to catch up before the season kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, what are you going to do? Get it all from Locked On stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conference? Everything you need to know all in one place. Be sure to check out and subscribe to the Locked On College Football podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When it comes to the secondary, when it comes to the cornerbacks and the safeties, sadly, Georgia does have the upper hand. If Andrew Makuba did not transfer from Clemson to Texas this offseason, I think this conversation would be extremely, extremely different. But unfortunately, he did. And because of that, we're where they are right now. Where the two teams are right now, we have to give the upper hand when it comes to secondary to Georgia. I mean, let's be honest. Not only is Georgia better than Clemson when it comes to the secondary where they're right now, they're one of the best in the nation. PFF, which has some great rankings out there, has them listed as the 7th best defensive back unit in all of the nation. When you go through their reasons why, a major reason they talk about is Malachi Starks. They say that he's the number 2 safety, returning safety in college football. Talked about as a sophomore how great he is, and how he's tied for 6th with 7 forced incompletions in 2023. They also talked about Dalen Everett, who's tied 3rd among SEC quarterbacks last year with open target rate allowed. The Bulldog, they also added some freshmen, added some younger recruits with Ellis Robertson and KJ Bolden, who is both number 1 player in the country at their position. So because of all that, they've got faith in Georgia. He's the only state in the country. Malachi Starks, here's how good this guy is. He's so talented. And look, I know I'm talking a lot about Georgia. Don't worry, in a second we'll talk about Clemson secondary. But when you look at Georgia's defensive unit, they are stacked. Georgia is placed in the top 10. This is straight from PFF quote. Georgia is placed in the top 10 of all position unit rankings in safeties and cornerbacks. The only other school to accomplish that feat is Ohio State. And then they highlight Malachi Starks one more time. Talk about Malachi Starks has taken the leap from a stud freshman to the best safety in the country. Only safety in the country is the top 15 for both coverage grades and run defense grades. And he's not only top 15, he's top 5 for both. And there's no one else in the top 15 for both. He's sick. He's crazy good. He's a future first-round draft pick, 100%. Georgia's secondary unit is loaded. And when we're comparing these two groups, we've said this often with the offensive side. We're also going to say this is defense. We're not ranking where they will be at. We're ranking at where they're at right now. We're ranking at where their potential is at, where their possibilities are at, what they can do right now, what we know about the two units at this moment. And with that, we've got to give it to Georgia. Their starting units, we have a couple, we've already talked about this. They've got Malachi Starks. They've got Dan Jackson, Julian Humphrey, Joelno Aguero. Those are the starting ones. On the bench, or like we said, we talked about those two freshmen with Ellis Robinson and KJ Bolden. They've also got Jake Pope, who's a redshirt sophomore or a transfer sophomore. They've got Ja'Cory Thomas, who's a junior. They've got talent. Even those players we mentioned on the bench, they probably could start at a majority of places in the country throughout the nation. So even with all the talent there, they've got so much talent on the bench. They've got so much on the field. That's why they're one of the best in the nation. Clemson, though, don't sleep on them. I'm not saying this like Clemson's terrible. Clemson's got a good secondary. I think we have a secondary that is – last year was a weak spot. We had Nate Wiggins, who was a first-round draft pick with Baltimore Ravens. Hope he has an amazing year this year. But – we have a good secondary this year too, but the reason why we can't rank them high is there's not a lot of like really, let's be faithful right now. There's not a lot of like are we sure this is going to happen? We've got to see some progressions. We've got to make sure what we think is going to happen is really going to happen. Our team right now, our secondary team, we have Avian Terrell and Jaden Lucas starting at the cornerback roles. Our slot cornerback is Jamal Anderson with Drew Woodass backing him up there. He's starting middle linebacker, but he is backing up there. Or I'm sorry, Wade Woodass's brother Drew is the backup there. As safeties, we have R.J. Mickens, who played great last year. He's a graduate student. Hopefully, he'll play better. There was a couple times last year where he gave up some big plays. I'm really hoping that R.J. Mickens can step up, can play a little bit more lockdown, a little less big play giving up, and more of the steady, traditional guy you can rely on. At our other safety, we have Tyler Venables, another graduate student. We've got some age at the safety position. Both of them are the fifth-year players at Clemson. I think they're going to both be good. I think they'll have success there, but they haven't. We've got to make sure that they're truly there. We've got to have faith in them. We've got to see what they can really do before we put them up there in the top 10 in the nation. Definitely before we put them above Georgia. At the nickelback, which I think is a huge role, I think this guy is going to be a huge spot for our defense, especially in the secondary, and that's Khalil Barnes. And I don't think he's going to be good just this year. I think next year, even the year after, if he stays, he'll be known as one of the best in the nation, as he's just a sophomore this year. Last year, he made a pretty big impact for Clemson in multiple games and multiple spots. This year, he's a sophomore. He's got experience. He's coming in as a starter. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be the staple for this team. When you really look at Clemson's secondary, you've got to think about Khalil Barnes, because he's a player that has the potential to lead this team on, especially the secondary unit, as a sophomore. He's a 6 foot, 195-pound sophomore. Last year, he played in 13 games. He started in 7 of those. In those games, he had 38 total tackles. He had 5 tackles for a loss, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. He had 9 pass deflections and 3 interceptions. That was all as a freshman, starting half of the games. Now he's going to be our true starter as a sophomore. He should start every single game, barring any injuries. I got some faith in him. I've got a little bit of excitement about it. I think this Clemson secondary, they're not scrubs. We don't have scrubs back there. We have a solid chain. We have a solid team. We have a solid group back there. They're just not as good as Georgia at this moment. When you look at our backups, we've got some good ones. We've got Ashton Hampton. We've got Sherrod Koval Jr. We've got Ricardo Jones, Shelton Lewis, and Kylan Griffin. I did misspeak. Jamal Anderson is a linebacker. He's not cornerback. I'm sorry for misspeaking. But yeah, so we have those. We also got some freshmen behind them. I think Corian Gibson is going to be amazing. He's a freshman we got this offseason. I really think he's going to play a big role in the future years. I don't know if he'll make a big impact this year, but he's going to be one that helps back up the secondary and continues the secondary growing and getting better year after year. So overall, Clemson's got a good secondary. We've got one that we don't know exactly their full potential. We don't know exactly what they can do, but we know that they should be good. We know that they should be good this year. It's just, can they match up to what we're hearing from them? Whereas Georgia, we know is good, and we've seen them be good, and we can fully expect them to be one of the best in the nation. And so with that, all that being said, Georgia does have the upper hand when it comes to the secondary. Clemson plays Georgia at 12 o'clock on Saturday, and that's just one of the many games that the ACC has. The ACC has a lot of big games this weekend. We already have seen the ACC kind of upside down with Florida State losing to Georgia Tech this past weekend, which was crazy. That game on Saturday was crazy. With all that happening and with all the big games in the ACC, what felt like a surefire Clemson versus FSU in the ACC championship is already seeing like that might not be the case. It's already having the ACC upside down. What's going to happen this season, especially week 1 in the ACC? It's going to be wild. Guys, it is, I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I need just a little bit of a pick-me-up. Maybe on Saturday, Clemson starts at 12 o'clock, and I'm going to be watching college football all day long. And I might need a little pick-me-up in the middle of that. If I do, I'm going to grab a 5-hour energy shot to stay alert and to watch all the games and stay up late, even for that intense overtime game. I'm going to take a 5-hour energy shot in the morning, and so I can start my day and watch all the games that I can. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, 5-Hour Energy is the perfect pick me up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore. It's got watermelon, it's got tropical burst, it's got grape, it's got my favorite berry, and more. It's more than there's flavor for everyone. Try them all. On the site, you also have the option to build your own 12 or 24 pack. You choose the flavored and have them delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5, then hourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today. You can use my code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid till September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, but get a pick me up. Go to 5hourenergy.com today for some added energy. The ACC has already been turned upside down. When we came into this season, everyone was talking about how the ACC was going to be Clemson, FSU in the championship. Other people were saying FSU and Miami. A couple people saying FSU in Louisville or NC State. But FSU was the staple. I did not hear one ACC championship game prediction where FSU was not in the ACC championship game. And am I saying they're completely removed from it? No. But when that game on Georgia against Georgia Tech happened, that was crazy. If you didn't have a chance to watch Saturday this past weekend, we were able to see Georgia Tech play FSU in Dublin at the 12 o'clock game to kick off the college football season this year. And it was a wild one. It was one where DJU was played how he did at Clemson. The stat that I saw that really highlighted this game with Florida State that was really like, are you kidding me? Was this. At halftime, DJU, who is, if you don't know, started at Clemson, transferred to Oregon State, now is back to FSU, started the first half, 12 for 14. Good completion percentage, right? Like, that's really good. You got to be really happy with that. That's that's over 90%. That's really, really good. But with those 12 for 14, he averaged negative 1.6 air yards per completion. What does that mean? That means on those 12 passes that he completed, the ball traveled an average over 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage when the receiver caught it. Meaning he would drop back 5 yards and the receivers on average would catch it 1.5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So while, yes, he went 12 for 14, it was on screen passes. It was on safety check routes. It wasn't on deep balls. It wasn't on plays down the field. I think he might have had 5 plays down past 15 yards all game. He really, I saw a tweet, and I hate to say this, but it made me laugh. And it said, FSU was officially dubbed by DJU. Welcome to the club. And it was by a Clemson fan. DJU did not play how he's supposed to. He was supposed to come in, replace their amazing quarterback they lost due to graduation last year. That didn't happen. He played I did at Clemson. Safety, not taking risks, not a guy that you can trust to truly win you the games. And that's why Georgia Tech ran all over him. They scored on a last-second field goal by an Irish kicker in Dublin, which I thought was amazing. It was an amazing game. It was a great game. Great way to kick off the season. But Florida State lost. And with Florida State losing, the ACC is already turned over from where it was supposed to be. Already turned over. And now this week, we've got some amazing ACC games this week, and officially week 1 of college football. On Thursday, we see NC State and Western Carolina. If NC State loses that game, I don't know what to do. I would laugh, but that would be crazy. Then you got a couple smaller games, Wake Forest, North Carolina A&T, North Carolina at Minnesota. That should be a good game. Friday, Duke plays Elon. Stanford plays in a really good game on Friday night at 10:30 against TCU at Stanford. That should be a good game, exciting one to watch. And then Saturday, ACC plays pretty much all day. You've got Clemson and Georgia, which the marquee matchup of all college football, in my opinion, this week. You have Virginia Tech at Vanderbilt. That'll be a good game. Battle of some mobile quarterbacks. Austin Peay at Louisville. Kent State at Pittsburgh. Miami plays Florida. That's going to be the second biggest game this weekend. Of the ACC. Seeing Miami match up against Florida, that's going to be a big-time game. Fun one to watch. UC Davis plays California. Richmond plays Virginia. Georgia State plays Georgia Tech. And Houston Christian plays SMU. And then Monday, Florida State tries to get in the win column with a late game on Monday against Boston College, hosting them in Tallahassee. What do we do if Florida State loses 2 right off the bat? I'm getting deja vu back from DJU days, and that's not that great considering, especially last year. I can't say much about them, but FSU is not where it is. The point of what I'm saying is this: the ACC is on its heels. Clemson has the true chance this year to really jump through, get rid of all the doubts, answer all the questions that are out there, and go back to the team that they are that dominates this conference. The window's wide open. Now's our chance to win the games, play how we're supposed to, and take a hold of this conference and win this conference. Absolutely. This is our chance. This is it. The biggest threats to Clemson to win the ACC, I think Florida State's obviously still up there, but I think Miami's up there as well as NC State, maybe a sleeper Louisville. But I think it's Clemson's to lose. I'm not saying we're going to win it. I'm not trying to jinx it, anything like that, but it is Clemson's to lose. It's exciting. College football is back. It took one game to realize the excitement and energy of college football. If you're a Clemson fan, obviously watch every single Clemson game, but just watch every game. It doesn't matter what's going on. Watch what's happening because you'll be able to see some exciting things. But the ACC is already upside down. And with all that being said, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Thanks so much for watching Clemson today. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Now go check out Locked On College Football podcast for your second listen. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment, Spencer McCaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't need to search. It is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Later this week, we're going to dive into more things leading up to that game on Saturday. Hey, make sure you're part of our Locked On Clemson Insider program. We've got some amazing things on there. We'll be chatting throughout the game on there, sending you messages. You can have one-on-one chat with me so you can respond back. You also get bonus videos, like bonus episodes of game recaps, film breakdowns, and all kinds of stuff. So make sure you join that. You can text Clemson to 864-252-1907. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on with today's topics. Drop a comment, send us a message. We'd love to have a conversation with you. If you haven't, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast, wherever you get your podcast at, or over on YouTube. That way we can be your first listen every day. Make sure to check out other podcasts from Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We can't wait to see you on tomorrow's episode. But until then, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring. And as always, go Tigers!